The sea explodes upward like a liquid mountain suddenly deciding to visit the sky. 40 tons of humpback whale launch themselves through the surface of the Pacific Ocean with the kind of athletic grace that shouldn't be possible for something the size of a city bus. Breaching directly beneath Landing Craft Infantry 447 as it approaches the beaches of Tarawa Atoll, carrying 36 Marines who were supposed to be worrying about Japanese machine gun nests. Not cetacean acrobatics performed with timing that seems personally designed to complicate their already dangerous morning. Corporal Mike Sullivan finds himself airborne, no longer in contact with the steel deck that had been solid beneath his boots exactly 2 seconds ago, watching his rifle tumble through salt spray while his brain struggles to process the fact that whales apparently don't respect military schedules, operational security, or the basic assumption that ocean wildlife will stay beneath the surface during amphibious assault operations. Around him, 35 other Marines experience similar involuntary flight lessons, their carefully planned combat formations dissolving into chaos as nature demonstrates that it operates according to priorities that have nothing to do with human warfare. The whale's massive body clears the water completely, a demonstration of physics that marine biologists would spend decades trying to explain. Hanging in the air for what feels like geological time while water cascades from its barnacle-encrusted hide like rain falling upward, creating a temporary eclipse that blocks out the sun and transforms morning into momentary twilight. Then gravity remembers its job, and 40 tons of marine mammal crash back into the Pacific with the sound of thunder made liquid, generating waves that would be impressive under any circumstances but seem positively apocalyptic when experienced from the deck of a small landing craft whose crew is still trying to understand why their routine amphibious assault has suddenly turned into an impromptu marine biology demonstration. But the whale's performance, spectacular as it is, represents only the opening act in a sequence of events that will transform a routine military operation into a lesson about the relationship between coincidence and survival, between natural phenomena and human fate, between the plans that military strategists make and the forces they cannot predict, control, or even imagine when designing operations that assume the ocean contains only water, enemy submarines, and other elements that appear on official tactical maps, rather than creatures that follow migration patterns established long before humans learned to make war on each other across oceanic distances. Because while the Marines struggle to regain their footing on a deck that pitches and rolls from the whale's impact waves, while they curse and laugh and try to locate rifles that scattered like leaves in a hurricane, while their sergeant attempts to restore some semblance of military order to what has become an inadvertent comedy of marine mammal interference, a Japanese submarine's torpedo passes through the exact coordinates that their landing craft occupied 15 seconds earlier. When whales were theoretical problems rather than immediate reality, when their mission followed predictable trajectories rather than detours imposed by creatures that understand nothing about human conflict, but everything about perfect timing. This is November 1943. The Central Pacific Campaign has reached Tarawa Atoll, where the United States Marine Corps is learning that amphibious warfare requires not only courage and tactical skill, but also the ability to adapt to variables that no training manual ever addressed, to overcome obstacles that no strategic planning ever anticipated, to survive challenges that emerge from the intersection of human warfare and natural phenomena that operate according to rhythms and priorities that predate human civilization by millions of years. The Marines approaching Tarawa's beaches understand that they face fortified Japanese positions, understand that amphibious assault represents one of the most dangerous operations in modern warfare, understand that their survival depends on speed, coordination, and the kind of aggressive momentum that overwhelms defensive positions before defenders can effectively respond to attacking forces. What they do not understand is that November represents peak migration season for North Pacific humpback whales. that their landing approach follows routes that intersect with whale highways established when the Pacific Ocean was young, and mammals first learned to navigate oceanic distances using magnetic fields, star patterns, and forms of natural GPS that human technology is only beginning to comprehend. The whales travel these same paths every year, following currents and food sources and reproductive imperatives that connect Arctic feeding grounds to tropical breeding areas, maintaining schedules that have remained consistent for geological periods that make human history seem like a brief interruption in patterns established long before continents reached their current configurations. Landing Craft Infantry 447 represents standard naval engineering, 36 feet of welded steel designed to transport combat troops from ship to shore through conditions that range from optimal to catastrophic. Equipped with armor plating that deflects small arms fire and shallow draft that allows beach landings. Powered by diesel engines that provide adequate speed and maneuverability for amphibious operations conducted according to tactical doctrine that assumes enemies will be human rather than cetacean, that obstacles will be military rather than biological, that interference will be intentional rather than accidental. The craft approaches Tarawa's beaches following predetermined navigation routes that tactical planners selected based on considerations of tide tables, reef formations, defensive positions, and enemy response capabilities. The Marines aboard have trained extensively for beach assault operations, practiced disembarkation procedures, rehearsed combat formations designed to establish beachheads despite determined resistance from well-prepared defenders who understand that stopping amphibious operations at the waterline represents their best opportunity to inflict maximum casualties on attacking forces while preserving their own defensive capabilities for extended resistance. But military planning assumes predictable variables, quantifiable risks, obstacles that can be identified through reconnaissance and addressed through appropriate tactical responses. Whale migration patterns do not appear on tactical maps. Marine mammal behavior does not factor into operational calculations. The possibility that 40-ton humpback whales might interpret military vessels as either threats requiring defensive response or curiosities deserving closer investigation never enters strategic assessments that focus on human enemies employing human weapons according to human tactical doctrine that follows recognizable patterns of military logic. Corporal Sullivan, sprawled across the deck where the whale's breach deposited him, has spent 2 years training for amphibious operations that prepared him for Japanese resistance. Mechanical failures, navigation errors, communication breakdowns, and dozens of other variables that military experience has identified as potential complications in amphibious warfare. Nothing in his training addressed the possibility that whales might mistake landing craft for threats, that marine mammals might respond to human military activity with defensive behaviors that inadvertently interfere with carefully planned combat operations, that nature might intervene in human warfare with timing that seems designed to create maximum confusion at minimum notice. The whale's breach follows patterns that marine biologists recognize as territorial display, defensive posturing, or communication behavior designed to establish presence in traditional migration corridors that other whales should respect and human vessels should avoid. Humpback whales use breaching to communicate across distances that sound alone cannot bridge, to demonstrate size and strength that establishes social hierarchies within whale communities, to remove parasites and barnacles that accumulate during long oceanic journeys between feeding and breeding grounds. The behavior serves multiple purposes in whale society, but its effect on human military operations is entirely accidental. Unintended interference that creates tactical complications no military doctrine ever anticipated. When the whale's massive body impacts the water surface after its spectacular aerial display, it generates hydraulic forces that transform the surrounding ocean into chaos of waves, currents, and pressure differentials that no landing craft can navigate smoothly. The LCI-447 rides these impact waves like a cork in a washing machine. pitching and rolling through angles that test both the vessel's stability and the Marines' ability to maintain any semblance of combat readiness while their transportation attempts to remain upright in conditions that naval engineers never included in their design specifications. Private First Class Tommy Rodriguez finds himself clutching his rifle while sliding across steel decking that tilts at angles that seem to violate several laws of physics, trying to maintain his grip on equipment that suddenly weighs either nothing or everything depending on which direction gravity decides to operate from one moment to the next. Around him, other Marines experience similar difficulties with fundamental concepts like up, down, and the reasonable expectation that floors will remain beneath feet, rather than becoming walls or ceilings without prior notice or adequate warning. Sergeant Bob McKenna, whose responsibility includes maintaining unit cohesion during amphibious operations regardless of circumstances that might arise during combat conditions, attempts to restore military order to what has become an exercise in applied chaos theory. His training emphasized leadership under fire, decision-making under pressure, adaptation to unexpected tactical developments that require immediate response without adequate information or preparation time. But nothing in his experience prepared him for leadership challenges that involve marine mammals, involuntary flight experiences, or the particular difficulties of maintaining military discipline when Mother Nature decides to demonstrate that she operates according to priorities that have nothing to do with human tactical schedules. The recovery process happens gradually, through the kind of systematic effort that good military training provides for dealing with unexpected complications that disrupt planned operations. Marines locate scattered equipment, re-establish unit formation, assess damage to personnel and materiel, restore communication with command elements that need situational reports about delays caused by factors that will require creative explanation in official after-action reports. The landing craft's crew checks mechanical systems for damage caused by impact forces that exceeded design specifications, verifies navigation equipment functionality, confirms engine operation despite stresses that no naval engineer ever included in operational testing procedures. But while human attention focuses on restoration of military capability and continuation of tactical operations according to modified schedules that account for whale-related delays, the ocean around Landing Craft Infantry 447 continues to conceal developments that will transform this morning's comedy into an afternoon's miracle. Japanese submarine I-175, positioned along predicted Allied approach routes to Tarawa's beaches, has been tracking American landing craft. Through periscope observations that identified optimal torpedo firing, solutions for attacks designed to inflict maximum casualties on assault forces before they reach defensive positions where Japanese troops wait with orders to fight to the death rather than surrender territory that represents critical strategic value in the Central Pacific campaign. The submarine's torpedo room houses Type 95 torpedoes, each carrying 405 kilograms of high explosive, designed to detonate on contact with Allied vessels, creating underwater explosions that generate pressure waves capable of crushing landing craft hulls, killing Marines through concussion effects that require no direct impact, transforming routine amphibious operations into catastrophic losses that could delay Allied advance schedules by months, while replacement forces are assembled and trained for subsequent assault operations. The weapons represent cutting-edge naval technology, sophisticated guidance systems, precision engineering that transforms Japanese industrial capacity into instruments of destruction specifically designed to counter American amphibious warfare capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Takeshi Yamamoto, commanding I-175, has calculated firing solutions that account for target speed, distance, ocean currents, and torpedo performance characteristics that determine optimal launch timing for maximum probability of successful engagement. His calculations assume target vessels will maintain predictable courses and speeds that allow accurate prediction of intercept coordinates where torpedo and target will occupy the same ocean space at the same time, creating the geometric convergence that transforms potential energy into kinetic destruction according to physical laws that govern explosive interactions between military weapons and their intended targets. What his calculations cannot account for is whale behavior. What his firing solution cannot predict is the possibility that marine mammals might interfere with target vessel navigation through behaviors that have nothing to do with human military operations, but everything to do with natural phenomena that operate according to biological imperatives rather than tactical considerations. The torpedo launch that should intercept Landing Craft Infantry 447 at predetermined coordinates instead passes through ocean space, recently vacated by Marines whose transportation was scattered by whale breach impacts that no tactical doctrine ever anticipated. The Type 95 torpedo travels its programmed course with mechanical precision, following guidance systems that direct it toward coordinates where American landing craft should be located according to calculations, based on observed speed and heading data that assumed predictable navigation patterns rather than detours imposed by marine mammal interference. The weapon's sophisticated technology performs exactly as designed, seeking targets that should occupy predicted positions, failing to locate vessels that whale-generated chaos has displaced, from expected trajectories by distances measured in meters but calculated in lives that would have been lost if 40 tons of humpback whale had not chosen that particular moment to demonstrate the athletic capabilities that evolution provides to creatures that navigate oceanic distances using abilities that human technology is only beginning to understand. The torpedo's passage creates a wake that Marines observe with the particular fascination that combat veterans develop for weapons that nearly killed them, for explosive devices that passed close enough to count as personal experience rather than abstract threat, for instruments of destruction whose failure to destroy represents the kind of narrow survival margin that war teaches people to recognize as the difference between tomorrow and nothing at all. The weapon continues toward Tarawa's beaches, where it will detonate harmlessly against coral formations that absorb its explosive energy without significant effect on tactical operations or strategic objectives. But the psychological impact on Landing Craft Infantry 447's Marines proves more significant than any physical damage the torpedo might have inflicted. They understand, with the clarity that combat experience provides, that their survival resulted from circumstances beyond human control, from intervention by forces that operate according to natural laws rather than military doctrine, from timing that seems too precise to be coincidental yet too random to be planned by any human, intelligence capable of coordinating whale behavior with submarine torpedo attacks for the purpose of protecting American military personnel from Japanese naval weapons. Corporal Sullivan, whose involuntary flight training courtesy of whale aerobatics probably saved his life, along with 35 other Marines who shared his experience with marine mammal interference in military operations, finds himself looking at the ocean with different eyes, seeing not just tactical environment but living ecosystem where creatures pursue their own objectives according to their own schedules for their own reasons that sometimes intersect with human activities in ways that create consequences no military planner ever anticipated, no tactical doctrine ever addressed, no training manual ever included in curriculum designed to prepare combat personnel for warfare conducted in environments where humans are visitors rather than permanent residents. The landing craft continues toward Tarawa's beaches, following modified navigation routes that account for delays caused by whale encounters and course corrections necessary to restore tactical schedules that have been disrupted by forces beyond military control. The Marines prepare for amphibious assault operations that will prove challenging enough without marine mammal complications, checking equipment that's scattered during their unexpected aerial experience, reviewing tactical procedures that assume enemies will be human rather than cetacean, focusing on mission objectives that require conventional military responses to conventional military threats, rather than creative adaptation to natural phenomena that military training never addressed. But they carry with them the knowledge that their survival resulted from intervention by forces that exist independently of human warfare, that operate according to natural laws that predate human civilization, that follow patterns established long before humans learned to make war on each other across oceanic distances. The whale that scattered their landing craft probably saved their lives through behavior that had nothing to do with protecting human beings from other human beings, but everything to do with natural phenomena that sometimes intersect with human activities in ways that create consequences no human intelligence could predict, plan, or control. The Japanese submarine I-175 continues patrol operations, seeking additional targets for torpedo attacks designed to disrupt American amphibious operations through conventional naval warfare that employs sophisticated weapons according to established tactical doctrine, rather than relying on marine mammal interference to create targeting difficulties that complicate firing solutions calculated according to standard naval engagement procedures. Lieutenant Commander Yamamoto will submit reports that attribute torpedo miss to target course alteration rather than whale-related displacement, because military reporting systems do not include categories for describing natural phenomena that interfere with naval weapons, employment through timing that seems designed to protect enemy forces from successful engagement. The humpback whale that created the morning's excitement continues its migration journey, following routes established by generations of whales that preceded human naval operations in the Pacific Ocean by millions of years, pursuing objectives that have nothing to do with human warfare but everything to do with biological imperatives that connect Arctic feeding grounds to tropical breeding areas through navigation systems that operate according to natural laws rather than human strategic considerations. The whale probably understood nothing about the torpedo it inadvertently deflected, the lives it accidentally saved, the military operation it temporarily disrupted through behavior that served whale purposes rather than human tactical objectives. Years later, when Marine Corps historians compile official records of amphibious operations in the Central Pacific Campaign, they will note unusual delays in Landing Craft Infantry 447's approach to Tarawa beaches without detailed explanation of circumstances that created those delays. Because military history focuses on human decisions and tactical outcomes rather than natural phenomena that influence combat operations through mechanisms that exist outside normal military analysis. The whale breach that scattered 36 Marines and probably saved their lives will become footnote in official records that emphasize conventional military factors rather than marine mammal intervention in human warfare. But the Marines who experienced whale-generated salvation carry the story with them through subsequent combat operations, through post-war civilian careers, through family discussions where children learn that survival sometimes results from forces beyond human control, from timing that seems too precise to be coincidental yet too random to be planned, from natural phenomena that occasionally intersect with human activities in ways that create consequences no human intelligence could predict or control, but every human heart recognizes as miraculous regardless of the scientific explanations that rational analysis might provide. Corporal Sullivan returns to civilian life in Ohio, where he works construction jobs that seem remarkably safe compared to amphibious assault operations, especially amphibious assault operations that include marine mammal complications that military training never addressed. When co-workers complain about difficult working conditions, he tells them about the morning when a whale's athletic performance probably saved his life and 35 others through timing that defied statistical probability while demonstrating that nature operates according to schedules that sometimes align with human need in ways that create outcomes no human planning could achieve. The whale migration patterns that intersect with former military operational areas continue to follow routes established long before humans learned to make war on each other across oceanic distances. maintaining schedules that connect feeding grounds to breeding areas according to natural cycles that predate human civilization. The whales pursue their own objectives for their own reasons, according to their own understanding of oceanic navigation that operates through abilities human technology is only beginning to comprehend, occasionally intersecting with human activities, in ways that create consequences that seem miraculous to human observers but probably represent routine behavior to creatures that have perfected oceanic travel through millions of years of evolutionary refinement. The Pacific Ocean continues to support both military operations and marine mammal migration according to natural laws that govern oceanic systems regardless of human activities conducted on its surface or beneath its waves. The same currents that carry whales between feeding and breeding grounds also influence naval navigation, submarine operations, and amphibious assault tactics that must account for environmental factors that affect military effectiveness, whether or not those factors are controlled by human intelligence, or natural phenomena that operate independently of human strategic considerations. But sometimes, in the intersection between human warfare and natural phenomena, in the convergence of military operations and marine mammal behavior, in the collision between tactical planning and biological imperatives that follow different schedules for different purposes according to different priorities, miraculous timing creates outcomes that save lives. Through mechanisms that no human intelligence could orchestrate, but every human heart recognizes as evidence that survival sometimes depends on forces beyond human control, timing beyond human calculation, intervention beyond human capability. The story persists in family discussions where veterans explain to children that courage and training and tactical skill are essential for survival in dangerous situations. But sometimes survival also requires recognition that humans share the planet with other creatures that pursue their own objectives according to their own schedules for their own reasons. And occasionally those pursuits intersect with human activities in ways that create consequences no human planning could achieve, but every human heart recognizes as gifts from forces larger than human understanding, timing more precise than human capability, intervention more effective than human technology. If stories like this remind you that miraculous timing sometimes emerges from the intersection of human activity and natural phenomena that operate according to schedules beyond human control, that survival occasionally depends on forces beyond human capability but within natural possibility, then perhaps there are other moments when the convergence of human need and natural phenomena created outcomes that seem too precise to be coincidental, yet too random to be planned, too beneficial to be accidental, yet too complex to be orchestrated by any human. Intelligence capable of coordinating natural forces for the purpose of protecting human life through mechanisms that exist beyond human control but within natural capability.